think there's a clean split between domestic and foreign. I think a lot of American Muslims' views on various public policy issues also reflect the evolution and this growing sophistication of American Muslims' views on their own sense of citizenry and their belonging in the world and their agency as Americans and their understanding of the difference between civil laws and religious laws. I mean, these are things that Shadi can speak to at much more depth. And so for someone in my parents' generation to say, hey, I like this Pete guy, and I don't care that he's gay. I think he's right on the issues.
Right.
That reflects not only an understanding that, I don't want to call it necessarily this progressive liberalism or acceptance or tolerance or any of these, condescending concepts that, you have to tolerate or you have to accept or whatever. It's more so this sense of like, we live in this very diverse, pluralistic society, and voting on issues and on policy preference is different than what your preference is for, who you go home with or, where you pray. And that reflects, I think, a sophistication within the community that's growing, and I think it's intergenerational. I don't think it's just limited to young Muslims. Something that you alluded to was, that we're in the trenches together. American Muslims, the Latina community, the African American community, the various causes, whether it's Black Lives Matter, the Women's March, the opposing the Muslim ban, you name it. When these folks are all working together in coalitions, it breaks down a lot of barriers, and it forces people to be able to see eye to eye on issues that matter, and also on issues that maybe were secondary or tertiary. So I think that that evolution is there as well. I did want to revisit some. I don't know how this format works, but I did want to revisit a previous topic, if I may.
Of course.
On the Arab-Israeli conflict issue. I second everything that Shadi said, and I'd also add that it's become a lot more easy for folks who work on Middle East policy to engage in Washington in the policy space within the Democratic Party than it is to engage on the issue within the Arab American and American Muslim community. There is far more nuance now in Washington on the issue, and far more political space to be able to take a variety of positions there than it is within sort of the grassroots space where sometimes it's a winner take all, my way or the highway sort of mentality. One of the things that I think the piece that we wrote tries to emphasize is that, what Shadi called the sea change in the Democratic Party's views, not just on Israel-Palestine, but on some of these moral and ethical issues and questions within the Middle East, whether it's on restraint in the Middle East at large when it comes to military action, or how the U.S. deals with its, at times problematic allies, whether it's Israel, Turkey, or the Arab Gulf states. Because of that, right now, I would say that folks who are trying to line up behind the Democratic nominee are having a tough time, an uphill climb, convincing folks for whom Israel-Palestine is their number one priority, that we need to be able to see the bigger picture, and to do so in a way that isn't condescending, that is not in any way dismissive of Palestinian rights and the indignity that Palestinians suffer daily, or the atrocities that are carried out by the Israeli government, and to do so in a way that says, look, if we want to build on the gains made within the Democratic Party on Israel-Palestine, on Middle East policy at large, we need to vote for the Democratic nominee, make sure Joe Biden is the president. The problem is, in addition to Israel-Palestine representing all of the important things that it represents, it is one of the three holy sites. It houses one of the three holy sites. And I think the decades-long history of the conflict, the optics, the trauma borne by the community, the fact that a lot of us in the American Muslim community know a Palestinian American. We know what it's like to hear the stories of the Nakba, and we've had their great cooking, and we know their songs and so on. It's endeared that conflict to the sense that it's become the privileged conflict. So you have civil wars currently burning in the Middle East, in Yemen, in Libya, and in Syria, arguably with far more grave geopolitical considerations and consequences for not just the Middle East, but also to Europe and the U.S., that hardly get any mention within the American Muslim space relative to some of the, what I would call the privileged conflict.